Hello, and welcome back to the My First Marathon podcast, where we interview runners in all stages of their running careers about their first marathon experiences to prove to you that anyone can run a marathon. My name is Taylor, and today we've got our third solo episode. I just recently ran the Eugene Marathon for my third marathon, and if you've been following along with my personal journey, it has been quite the experience getting to race day, and race day itself was a whole experience in itself. So I'm excited to break it down. I do have a lot of notes to kind of make sure I'm keeping the timeline straight today um, because it was a very turbulent training block. I have never gone through an injury before. I'm very grateful to go through an injury now so that I come out the other side knowing a whole lot more about myself, about the injury process, about my body, all the good things. But yeah, I'm excited to break it down. So strap in. This is going to be a little bit of a therapy session today. All right. So I ran my second marathon November 3rd of 2024. It was a great race. I would say definitely one of the best race experiences I've had, both half marathons and full marathons, and everything just went according to plan. I had a little bit of a cramp. If you listened to my last episode, you know this, but I had a little bit of a cramp towards the end, but ultimately I ended that race and still felt like I had so much in the tank. So I was excited because I had some time goals set for Eugene that race just made me feel like really confident about. Ran that race in a 4:45, which was my goal for that one. My previous PR was a 5:20, so I PR'd by quite a bit. I was super happy with that. So yeah, like was feeling really confident about going into Eugene. That race, like I said, November 3rd. I wasn't planning on starting training again until December 23rd. I had a race lined up at the end of that month that was going to kind of kick off training for me. And until then, I was running, not running, just kind of doing whatever I wanted to do. Maintaining my base was really all that I was worried about. But otherwise, yeah, just taking some time off, making sure that I missed running before I started training for Eugene. That was really important to me. By the time December 23rd rolled around, I was ready to train. I was ready to rock. I was ready to get fast. I had a whole plan laid out for me. I decided not to go with the coach again for this race. That's going to change, you'll see. But decided not to go with the coach because I just really felt like I was able to knock off quite a bit of time on my own between marathon number 1 and marathon number 2. So figured I could do the same thing for marathon number 3. I followed a Hal Higdon plan for the first little bit for the base building part of it, and then I moved into trying out Runna. I had been seeing a lot of good stuff about it on social media, so I wanted to try Runna. December 23rd, training officially started, kicked it off with a bang. I had a race with my family, a little Jingle Bell run back in my hometown in Eugene, actually, funny enough, and with my mom and my brother. It was fun. It was like 9 miles, 15K. It was perfect and felt pretty good. No issues. Didn't notice anything at that point. I had been noticing since my previous marathon, like a slight twinge in my toe sometimes. So it wasn't enough that I was overly concerned. If anything, I just chalked it up to regular running injuries, as a lot of us do, or like regular running pain. So really didn't think anything of it. Had no issues in that race. Was still feeling pretty good. I trained completely like normal until January 28th. That was when I started to realize that the pain in my foot wasn't getting any worse, but it also wasn't getting any better, if that makes sense. So I was having these slight little twinges in like all of my toes, if I could put it to one spot. So it wasn't pinpointed to my big toe, which eventually it was. At that point, it was all of my toes. And I was just feeling like, yeah, it's just regular running pain. But around, I would say, January 28th, about a month after I started training, I was realizing that it just wasn't getting any better. And that's when, alarm bells started to ring in my head of, okay, am I injuring myself if I continue training? So, first in peace of mind, I saw a foot doctor about it on January 30th. So, a couple of days after I had that thought. And I went to a foot and ankle doctor first. I don't know why. That's just where I started. And I had a not so good experience with them. I think that looking back on the experience, going to a running specific person is definitely important when you're dealing with a running specific injury, because this foot and ankle doctor basically took a look at my foot, watched me walk. She didn't have me run or anything like that. She literally just had me walk across the hallway and back, and then went, yep, we need to put you in a brace. Oh, and by the way, that brace isn't covered by insurance, which is a whole other thing, but so I had to pay some money, got a brace that ultimately ended up doing nothing for me. Her idea was just to stabilize the foot or the ankle enough while I was running so that I wasn't, pronating or anything like that, or not putting a lot of pressure on my toes. But she just wasn't getting to the root of the issue. They're a foot and ankle doctor. It's nothing on them. It just wasn't their area of expertise. But I didn't know any better, so I ran in the brace for a little bit, and I actually felt like the brace was hurting my knee because it changed the way that I was running, like it changed my running gait. So I ran in the brace for about a week, but then I took it off and I was like, this is not the move. I'm just gonna rest for a little bit. I think I rested for like 3 or 4 days, took off the brace, realized it wasn't helping, and then looked at other options from there. I remember texting my friend Anna and being like, hey, you have any recommendations for a PT in the Raleigh area? She recommended, I'll shout them out, Spark PT in Raleigh, North Carolina. Had a great experience with them. They were able to get me in pretty immediately. I ended up seeing them on February 6th. So I saw them pretty quickly after that first foot and ankle appointment. Funny enough, the day before I went and saw that appointment, so on the 5th, that was the first time that I failed a run. So I went out for, I want to say it was like 8 miles or something like that, made it 3 or 4 miles, and my foot was like, nope, this doesn't feel right. I think you have that gut feeling as a runner when something doesn't feel right, when it's not just running pain, when it's like an actual injury. I certainly had that gut check moment where I was like, okay, something does not feel right. I feel like I'm hurting myself now. So thankfully, I had that appointment the next day. He told me there was a couple of different things that it could be. All of them were tendon related injuries in my foot. So he's like, we're going to, until we can figure out what's going on, we're going to treat this like a tendon injury, and we're going to start doing like ultrasound therapy, scraping, some other stuff that's just going to help speed up the recovery of my foot. But he still cleared me to continue training. Like, he was like, the marathon's not out. I was still so early in training, and he was willing, he's a running specific person. So he was able to say, I think you can still run this race. It's probably not going to be the PR that you were hoping for, but let's just treat this like a tendon injury. Let's take some time off or pull back a little bit, and then we'll reassess from there. I was told that from there I could keep training, but I could only run up to a level 5 pain. So for me, that unfortunately was only like 4 or 5 miles for a good bit there. I would get to 4 or 5 miles out of, like a 10-mile run or something like that. And I'd have to stop, or I'd have to walk. I might have been able to squeeze out an extra couple miles from there. So maybe I got up to like 6 or 7 out of a 10-mile run, but then I'd have to stop because I'd hit that 5 level pain threshold, which was really frustrating because mentally I was feeling really good. Endurance was feeling really good. Legs were feeling really good. Every single piece of my training was feeling amazing except for my foot. So that was incredibly frustrating because, like I said, I had big goals. I don't think I said it, but I was going for a 4:15 marathon for Eugene. So I had these big goals, and I was pretty confident that I could hit them because of how training was going for a while until, it wasn't going well. So I was really disappointed that in that level 5 pain portion of my training because every single thing felt good. It was literally just my left foot. So that was really frustrating. On the 9th, so I saw the PT on the 6th, on the 9th of February. That was my last long run before my foot completely took me out of training. I remember I had a 10-mile run scheduled that day. Same thing, I had to run up to a level 5 pain. I got to mile 5 and I broke down in tears because I knew it. I knew that if I kept running, if I kept pushing through that 10-mile run, I was going to injure myself permanently. Like, not permanently, that's dramatic, but you know what I mean? Like, I was going to actually have something on my hands that was going to take me out of the race. And at that point, I was still so early in training that I was convinced that I could, rehab the injury. And if nothing else, I was thinking, as a podcast host, I talk to a lot of people who have injuries. So maybe going through something like this and at least trying to train through it with the understanding that I may not run the race ultimately might not be a bad perspective to have. So I was like, okay, I failed that run. I was really frustrated. I came home and cried a whole lot and decided that I'm going to treat this injury like an injury. Let's take some time off. So I didn't run for 4 weeks after that, which was so hard mentally. As after having the first 2 years of my running career being running, having to take a step back and learn to, I don't think I ever learned to love it, but learned to appreciate the stationary bike. I ended up buying my own bike to get outside because after 2 weeks on the stationary bike, I was ready to lose my mind. It was horrible. So I got an actual bike, which was cool. I picked up a new hobby. I love my bike now. So I'm that's a positive, I guess, that came out of this whole experience is I have a bike now. But I was only really doing that. I wasn't running at all for a good portion there. And I was doing a whole lot of strength. So at that point, I genuinely felt like I was the strongest that I'd ever been because I was in the gym a lot more and I was on the bike a lot more. But in terms of running, I was not running at all. That continued until March 1st. So no running, just biking until March 1st. After March 1st, I was cleared by the PT to do small little 30-minute runs up to a level 5 pain still until about 3:15. So about March 15th, 2 weeks there where I was running for 30 minutes. That usually came out to like 3 to 3.5 miles for me. And we continued there. I was slowly losing confidence. I cannot tell you how many times I logged onto the Eugene Marathon website and clicked on manage my registration and was about to drop down to the half. But something about me was just like, see this out a little bit further. I kept telling myself to give it till week 12. I had an 18-week training plan. I said, give it till week 12. Week 12 is the absolute last date that you can continue to train safely. And that's kind of what my PT was telling me too. So I was like, we'll give it till then, but I really was not confident. I probably logged onto that website to drop down to the half at least 10 times. Like I was not confident. I didn't want to be that runner, especially being somebody that chooses to be a voice in this space. I didn't want to be that runner that pushed through an unreasonable amount of pain or pushed through an injury and then ended up like ending my running career. I couldn't do that to myself. So this whole time I kept having it in my mind that I was going to be smart and I was going to drop down to the half or I was going to drop out of the race. And I think that mindset really helped me because I felt like I had control. Like that is the one thing that I can control out of this whole thing when everything feels like it's going wrong. Like that is the one thing that I can control. Which was good, but I still was having a lot of mental breakdowns during that point because I felt like Eugene was a big deal for me. I didn't say this before, but Eugene is my hometown, or close to my hometown, 20 minutes north of my hometown. I had a whole lot of family that was going to be there. I had some brand stuff that I had to do while I was there, so that was adding some pressure. I had talked a lot about the marathon on social media, so I just felt like a lot of pressure there. There was something about it that was making me feel like I need to continue to at least try to train for this marathon. I don't know what it is. I still can't put my finger on it, but I think it was a combination of it being an out-of-state race, having a whole lot of friends and family there, having some obligations to do while I was there, flying across the country for it. Everything was already booked. Like it was just a lot of pressure, I think. Which I'll talk about my perspective after I ran it. But that's how I was feeling at the time. On 315, that's when I started working with Excel Movement, which is a movement and performance spot in Raleigh. I started working with Brian there. He's great. I think that going to PT was 100% necessary, and Spark did a ton for speeding up my foot's recovery. But what I really found from Excel was addressing the like root of the issue. He was the first person that said, "Hey, has anybody looked at your hips?" for example. And I was like, no, not really. I mean, we've looked at running form, but not specifically my hips. And he was able to pick up pretty much right away after doing an assessment with me on my left hip dropping quite a bit more than my right hip and me pulling pretty much my entire body with my right side when I'm running, which was pretty crazy to see. I saw the video and I was like, oh, wow, that is very obvious that I'm putting in the majority of my work on the right side of my body. So in turn, because I was not using my left side of my body the way I should be, I was putting a lot of strain on my left foot, hence the tendon issues. So he immediately started me on some hip strength stuff. I was having to do a ridiculous amount of hip exercises today. There was a point where I was doing these strengthening exercises 3 times a day because he also had the mindset of let's get you to run this marathon, which I loved, but safely, right? I had all these resources behind me, and I think that that's important to note throughout this story is how many people were helping me train safely and telling me that I could train for this. I don't recommend doing any of this on your own. Anyways, so Brian was giving me these hip strength workouts, and I immediately noticed a difference. It was a combination between what I was doing with Spark to heal my foot and a combination of strengthening my hips with Excel, where I started to see some progress and I started to build some confidence back and I was crying a lot less and all that good stuff. So was feeling better. Not confident 100%, but better. The more I worked on my hips, the more load I felt like it was taking off of my foot. So I was able to feel less and less pain in my foot the more that I continued to do that. I continued with hip strength, a combination of hip strength, biking, and 45-minute runs until about March 30th. I ran my first 8-mile long run on March 30th. That was the first long run that I had in like 8 weeks. So that was super, super exciting. And it felt great. Like my foot was in good shape. If anything, I had a little bit of pain in my knee, but my foot was feeling really good. So I was feeling good about that. So I ended up messaging Brian and asking if I could run this half marathon that was on April let's see. I ended up running this half marathon on April 6th. I don't think I've mentioned this, but the race is April 27th. So I ran a half marathon on April 6th. Guys, I've never been so nervous for a race ever in my life. That was so nerve-wracking. I was standing at the start line, like I have a video of myself literally shaking out my hands and looking at my feet. Like I just didn't know what was going to happen. And I was so terrified that I was going to DNF that half marathon and then I would have to DNF the marathon. Like there was no thought in my mind that if that race did not go well, that I was going to continue to train and run that marathon. I was like, if I can't run this, I'm out. I'm so close. I'm 20 days away from this race. Like no chance. So there was a lot riding on that half marathon. Thankfully, it went pretty well. The only thing I was disappointed in and had to check myself on was my pace, because I did lose about 2 minutes worth of fitness per mile, just not being able to train properly, and then the foot thing. So that maybe hurt my ego more than it hurt anything else, but I still felt really good that I was able to finish the race, and that I still felt like I had a little bit of endurance left in the tank. I was like, that is literally all I can ask for right now. So we ended up doing that. That went okay. Then I hit peak week. So I had 4 weeks off, and then basically 4 weeks of not being able to train properly, doing those little 30, 45-minute runs. So my peak week was crammed in there, and my taper was also really, really tight. So that was making me nervous, but I was able to get an 18-mile run in for peak week, and I was able to run hour runs that week. So I had a true peak week compared to the rest of my training block. And that 18-mile run was emotional. I just couldn't believe that my fitness from the biking and the strength and everything I had been able to maintain it as well as I did. I was shocked. Like 18 miles did not feel easy, don't get me wrong. I think that's part of the reason why I was so emotional, is because it was not easy, but I was able to do it and not be in a ton of pain. So I was like, okay, like for the first time this entire block, besides the beginning, I actually feel like I might be able to run this race. And that's when I really dug into my why, which we talk a lot about on the guest episodes. But I had kind of lost sight of my why, because I was so focused on the rehabbing the injury, and should I run this? Am I being a good example? Am I making a mistake? Like, is all this hard work for nothing, or should I see it through? I was so stuck in that mindset that I really lost sight of the reason why I run. And the reason why I run is to continue to prove to myself that I can do these hard things, and that I'm confident, and I'm a runner, and like I belong in this space. Like so many things were going through my head that I had just lost sight of, and came back to fruition when I ran that 18-mile run, where I was like, oh no, I can do hard things. I can push through hard things. I can use my resources. I can be smart. I'm an intelligent person. Like no matter what anybody says about this experience on social media, I don't care, because I know that I've gone about this the right way, and I've done it with a lot of people telling me that I can, and professionals telling me that I can, and I think I sought out enough resources to be confident in that. So I was able to get through that 18-mile run and get back to that feeling of like, this is why I run, and I'm smart, and I know what I'm doing, and I'm not the same runner that ran a first marathon a couple years ago. Like this is my third marathon, and I know my body at this point, and I know what I can do. And that 18-mile run just really brought me back into my body with that, and I was like, okay, like we might be able to salvage this race. Let's go. So we hit peak week. I remember Brian from Excel specifically telling me after peak week, you don't get the luxury of a 2-week taper. Like we're cramming this too much into a short period of time. You have to continue to train 1 more week, and then we'll drop you off for taper. So I still had, I think like an 8-mile long run the next weekend, or a 10-mile long run the next weekend, something like that. So I didn't necessarily get a 2-week break. And the last week of taper, my knee was starting to really bother me on the left side. It was explained to me like my knee was more of a fatigue or an overuse thing with my knee instead of an injury. It kind of got sandwiched between the work I was doing on my hip and the pain I was feeling in my foot. So the knee just kind of like got the repercussions of all the work that I had put in. So nobody, my PT or Brian, was concerned about my knee necessarily. If anything, Brian was telling me it was a good thing that my knee was hurting. I'm going to do a terrible job explaining this, but it's good when the injury is moving, when your pain is moving away from your injury. So the fact that it was in my knee was better, supposedly. But my knee was starting to hurt, and that was shaking my confidence a little bit, but everybody was telling me that I was okay to keep doing it. But because of my knee, my taper week was really a drop off. I did 1 3-mile week run at the beginning of the week, and then a 2-mile shakeout run at the end of the week, the day before, and that was it. I didn't run in between. I did a whole lot of hip stuff, but not any running, because I really just was focused on getting my body weight off of my knee so that I was as fresh as I could be on race day. I should also say that during this time when my knee started to hurt, I started wearing a little bit like a knee sleeve, and that was helping quite a bit with just stability, because I really just felt unstable. Not like injured, just tired. My body had been beat up for cramming in a couple really tough weeks in a row, and my knee was just fatigued, so the sleeve helped out a lot. I mentioned the sleeve for a reason. I'll get back to that when we get to race day. But we got through taper. Coincidentally, my life just kind of lined up with the Eugene Marathon, which was really great. I was able to quit my job that I had for the last 4 years a couple of weeks before my peak week, and I didn't have to work again, or I don't start my new job until May 5th. So I had quite a bit of time off to just mentally get in a good spot, physically get in a good spot for Eugene. So that was very great. But also, man, I had a ton of time during taper to pack and get ready. And I was traveling from North Carolina to Eugene, so it was a very long flight. I think I flew out on Thursday. Oh no, I flew out Friday morning, bright and early, and got there around 1 p.m. Pacific time, Friday afternoon. I'm very specific about what I eat the day before a race. So my mom picked me up. We immediately went to the grocery store so I could get all the stuff I needed for dinner and lunches and breakfast and all that good stuff. I'm a creature of habit. So I like a couple like chicken thighs and a whole lot of rice and some a vegetable. That's my pre-race like ritual. So we did all that. And then the days leading up, Friday we just kind of kicked it. I had some stuff to do with some friends in a brand, so I did all the work stuff that I needed to do. And then Saturday spent some time with a running friend and then went to the expo. So that was really fun. The expo was great. Shout out to Noogs. I saw Noogs there and Alethea Runs, who are just two brands that I really love and was excited to see. So shout out to them. Got some merch. I love it. Like Nike does the best merch, so I was really excited about all the Eugene Marathon merch. Had a really good time, and then just really needed to get off my feet. So we did a little shakeout run just near my parents' house, 2 miles, nothing crazy. And then I just focused on getting off my feet and feeling well for the rest of the night. The night before, I was freaking out. I stayed at my brother's house, and so I could kind of get away from some of the noise. And that whole night I was nervous. I was really nervous. You did not know what was going to happen. I've never gone into a race feeling less confident than I did then. I was afraid my foot was feeling really good, but I was afraid that it would blow up randomly, or if the knee issues that I was having, like the fatigue I was having, that would be a problem. I didn't really get to test a whole lot of fuel or gear, so I was nervous about all that. All of it was coming up the night before. I was laying in bed like, oh my god, what am I doing? Why did I see this through? Why didn't I just run the half with the rest of my family? But the other side of it that I really sat in and I journaled about a lot was, again, my why. Like, I really dug into why are you doing this? What is the reason that you're doing this? And I just kept coming back to two things. I kept coming back to, this is just another one that this is another thing that I want to prove to myself. And I have a chip on my shoulder with it being specifically Eugene, because I grew up 20 minutes south of there, like I said, and I have some just kind of turbulent memories of that area, like not the fondest memories. And Eugene felt like something that I could accomplish now that I'm on the other side of an unhealthy mindset. Like, me, the person who lived near Eugene or lived in Oregon a couple of years ago, is not the same person that I am post finding running and running my first marathon and all of that. So there was something about coming back and being a different person that I really, really cared about. And that no matter how long it took me to finish that race, as long as I could do it safely, that is what I was focused on for most of the race, was the fact that I am a completely different person doing this in a city that used to be a little bit toxic for me. So that's what I kept leaning on there. And then the second thing that kept coming to mind was the podcast. Funny enough, I was like, I interview so many runners who have gone through an injury, so I know this is normal to go through. And one, I don't have to be embarrassed about it because there's so many people that are going through it, and I tried my best to really document like the ups and the downs of the whole thing throughout the process. But also, how cool that I'm gaining this perspective now, you know? Like, I can empathize with runners before who had gone through an injury, but I had never gone through one myself, so I didn't know really how to relate to them. And I was really thankful that I had that experience, because all these stories of people that have come on the show that have gone through injuries and have talked about how horrible it was on their mental health and on their bodies, and all the like, should I train, should I push through, should I pull out type stuff. Like, I understood it, but I didn't really understand it before until I went through it myself. And I was thinking about that a lot the night before, of like, how cool that I have this perspective now. And how lucky am I to get to run this race tomorrow when there's so many people who have come on the show and talked about their injury experiences and have not been able to run the races that they wanted to. So it's really just trying to sit in, as cheesy as it sounds, like the gratitude of that, of the fact that I'm even at the start line of the race that I was not supposed to run. And I started thinking about all the people that helped me, like even the foot and ankle doctor, like all the resources. There was 4 or 5 people who had given me, professionals who had given me advice and had helped me get to race day and like helped me train safely through this whole thing. And I was just feeling super, super grateful to be there. And that's why I went to bed, just feeling super grateful, nervous, obviously, but just very much like I'm here. And so many people helped me get here. Like, how cool is that? So then race day. Got up bright and early. I'm an early riser. I also was working off of a 3-hour time difference, so my brain was awake. I got up at 4. Race was at 7. I made some breakfast, had 2 packets. I'm pretty, like I said, creature habit. So I'm always 2 packets of oatmeal, a banana, and half a bagel with some peanut butter. That's my go-to marathon breakfast. That's what works for my stomach. I had my flat lay all laid out the night before. Of course, as you do, I was wearing yellow to the race for Eugene for the ducks. Had it all laid out. My parents were picking me up at 5:40 to take me to the race, or my brother was running the race too, so to pick us all up to go to the race. My brother, my mom, and my cousin were all running the half marathon, so that was pretty fun. We got to the stadium. So cool. Being able to go in the stadium was like the coolest experience ever. I've never been in there, even as a kid when we used to go watch like the Olympic trials. I never went in there and got to go stand on the track, so that was pretty cool before the race. I mostly was focused. I was probably being so annoying to my family, but I was mostly focused on sitting anywhere where I could find a spot to sit on the curb or something. I was trying to get off of my knee as much as I could. I had the brace on, but it was my right knee that was being weird. So I was like, I just need to be off my knees. I feel like I'm just fatigued. So sat a lot, made it to my corral. I picked the very last corral because I did not know what was going to happen. So we were in corral E. I didn't really have a time goal. I wanted to be around 5 hours. That was like a loose goal. I think that's like an 11:30 pace or something like that. But I was like, whatever happens, happens. That's just more for me mentally to have a goal in mind. So I have something to shoot for every mile. Got in corral E, lined up with my mom, my brother, and my cousin. My brother and my cousin kind of were planning on going a little bit ahead of us for the half, so they were gone. The half marathon runs with the full for about 10 miles. So I knew I was going to be able to run with my mom for a while, which was cool. And then an internet friend, Colin, shout out to you, found me at the start line, which was pretty cool. And we just ended up getting to talking, and the race ended up starting shortly after we talked. And spoiler, we ended up running together for the full 5 hours, and that was his first marathon. So like that was super cool. I had a similar experience back in DC with my friend Andy, who I also ended up seeing at the race. So shout out to you. But she was running her first half marathon then, and I remember doing the same thing of like, my time goals are out the window because I want to help you. Like with your half marathon, I want to run with you and support you. I love watching races through the lenses of somebody's first experience. Like, obviously, that's why I do this show, is because I love the first marathon or first race experience so much. I think it's so impactful. But getting to watch it live is like unreal. So I was really happy that I had a similar thing happen here where Colin found me, and we just ended up running together for a while. He had to endure my family and friends along the course, but no, he killed it. I loved seeing him crush his first marathon. But first, I would say, I mean, gosh, first half was great. We were cruising. We were sitting around like a 12:30 mile. We were just talking and having a good time, and my knees were feeling good. I was like, yeah, we're doing this thing. Like, this is going okay. Swapped fuel at mile 13 because I took my pack with me, and I only pack about half of my fuel when I run a marathon. So my friend had my other 2 flasks and the other half of my fuel with me. I was doing really good on fuel every 30 minutes. I had some caffeine gels and that I was mixing in, some chews that I was mixing in. So I was feeling pretty good. And I think we cruised for another probably, I don't know, 13. So probably another 5 miles up until 18. We were still doing pretty good. There was a couple parts there on the greenways of Eugene. That would be my only complaint about the course, is there was a couple there where the greenways just all looked exactly the same and there was not a whole lot of crowd support. So mentally, I was trying to check on Colin and make sure he was good, but man, there was a lot of like the same for a long time. And I think that's the worst thing in my 3 marathon experiences, is when you hit those like points in the race where they're really similar, everything looks exactly the same, you just feel like you're not making any progress, that is the worst mentally for me. So I wouldn't say I hit a wall during that time, but I remember saying out loud, like, oh my God, like this is going on forever. So that was fun. But we got to mile 18, was still feeling good, just starting to get a little bit fatigued. Like that's when I was really starting to feel my knees a lot and just feel every single mile that I was not able to run during training, that I don't remember feeling from my first 2 marathons. So I was getting a little worried, but at that point I'm so over the hump that I'm like, I have to finish at this point. If I can get to 18, I can get to 26. That's all I kept telling myself. And then mile 20 hit. And mile 20 is where everything started to go downhill, fortunately for me. We stopped off for a water break. I think Colin was getting a banana or something like that, and I just stepped onto the curb real quick to grab something, grab something out of my pack. And then when I stepped back down off the curb, my right knee, which wasn't even the side that was injured, I twisted it a little funky. I think it was because I was so tired. I'm sure anybody that's ran a marathon can relate to that dangerous step that you can take when you're tired. A lot of times it makes you cramp, but for me, I just took a weird step. And because my legs were so tired, my knee just kind of like twisted in and out weird. And I had a sharp pain in my knee for the last 6 miles for sure. Um, I was I hit it. I didn't want to freak Colin out because this was his first race, and like, God forbid the person you're running with gets injured. Like, couldn't leave him hanging like that. So I pushed through it. I wasn't feeling like I was tearing anything or anything. I just knew I had a little bit of a tweak, but I pushed through it, and I kept kind of like walking every once in a while just to give it some relief. And then we'd run. We hit another park that was just another one of those parks that just kept going and going and going and going. And that was how the race was ending. So that was tough. If anything, I was glad I had the knee to like distract me, because that park felt like it kept going forever. But because my knee was not stable, I kept almost cramping up in my calves, just because I kept taking those weird like shuffle steps, which it just like is the worst feeling at the end of a race, to almost be cramping up. So I just kept telling myself, get to the finish, at least get to 20. I kept saying like, at least get to 24, 25, and then I can tell Colin to go and focus on just maybe walking a little bit more, focusing on my breathing, like just maybe go a little bit more internal, because I was trying to focus on him. But yeah, I was like, let me just get to there. So I got to mile 20, I think it was 25. I think we made it all the way to 25. I told him he should go and finish the race, get his own picture, all that good stuff. And that's when I broke down in tears, because I couldn't, two things. I couldn't believe I was so close. And then I also was in a little bit of disbelief that that my knee was hurting on the right side, and it wasn't even the injury that I came into the race thinking was going to take me out that was going to take me out. Like I was in a whole lot of disbelief, and I was mad, and I was excited that we were going to finish it, but it also didn't feel good because I didn't feel like I gave it my best. And like it was just a whole lot of emotions that I was going through between 25 and 26. But I hit the track. As soon as I hit the track, I was like, something's gonna happen. Like my knee, I looked down and my knee was pretty swollen, and all I was thinking was, don't take any more weird steps. No more weird steps. Like the last thing you need to do is cramp up. No more weird steps. That did not last. At the finish line, I took a weird step. As soon as I crossed the finish line, my knee kind of like gave out on me. If you saw the video, you can see the step I took where my knee gave out, and that weird step made my right calf seize up, not just cramp, it's completely seized. And because I took a weird step on my right side, my left calf completely seized. And by the way, this is right at the finish line. Left calf completely seized. That caused me to not be able to put any pressure on my heels. So I did like literally looked like a baby deer, because I was trying to put my heels down and I couldn't, which was really scary. So kept trying to do that, and then my knee locked up too. So then I couldn't bend my knee. So EMS at the finish line had to run out and keep me from falling. Shout out to them, because I was like about a half second from being on my ass. So that was great that they got out there so quickly. They got me into a wheelchair because I couldn't bend my right leg. I wasn't crying. I was completely alert. I wasn't even in shock. I just I was fully aware of what was going on. I think because I was so internal for that last mile that I just knew something was going to happen. And we got wheeled over to the side, got me checked out at a tent that had some PTs in there. She was like, confirmed, like, yeah, your right knee is pretty swollen. Let's put some ice on it, and you need to go see somebody when you get back home. I said, okay, got it. I broke down when my mom came over and gave me a hug. I started crying because I just like full transparency, I was really disappointed in myself because I which is so stupid because I had such a horrible training block, but like I made it so far into the race with no problems. I was so mad at myself and my body for not being able to carry it through for literally the last second that I just like broke down in tears. I remember I told her like I need to cry now is what I said before I started crying, and I just started crying. And that release helped me. It snapped me back into reality where I was like, I'm crying over finishing a marathon, being disappointed in myself finishing a marathon. Like I had this moment where I was crying about finishing a marathon. Like even saying that out loud is crazy. Like how lucky am I to be complaining about finishing a marathon is how I snapped back into my body at that point. Like I'm not complaining about a hangover or like I'm not complaining about anything that I complained about when I was at my lowest. I am complaining about not finishing a marathon running 26.2 miles in the way that I wanted to. And I just like had this moment of how lucky am I to feel like that? Like how lucky are we to complain about running a marathon versus all the other things that we could potentially complain about? It's so silly, these expectations that we put on ourselves. We're not elite, not most of us are not elite athletes. I am certainly not an elite athlete. I'm putting so much pressure on myself to do something that is so impressive in itself. You know what I mean? Like it was a heavy moment for me where I just reality checked myself of like I'm never going to be disappointed in myself for running a marathon ever again. This is I can be sad about it. I can be upset that it didn't go the way that I wanted it to go, but I'm never going to be disappointed in myself for running a marathon ever again because I just did that. I got the medal just like everybody else. It took me I only missed my first marathon time by like 10 minutes, like, and that was with the whole training block that I went through. And I had the nerve to be disappointed in myself for a second there. Like, how lucky are we to be able to complain about that? You know what I mean? So from there, I I started to see some friends and family. I was a little embarrassed with the way it ended. Oh, I didn't even say my boyfriend wasn't able to come with me for this marathon. It was all the way across the country, so it would have been hard for him to come. But he was watching the live feed for Eugene, which was just a live feed of the finish line. And I feel so bad because there was no sound. I stopped texting him. My mom wasn't texting him because she was helping me. So all he saw was me stumble and collapse at the finish line and get put in a wheelchair. And then I didn't call him for another like 10 minutes. So I felt so bad that that's how he saw the race end for me. But he was super supportive, and he was super supportive that whole training block. Like I I don't think I would have been able to do it if he hadn't sat there and been my therapist for a lot of that. So thank you. But that was a rough way for him to see me end that race because he knew everything that I went through with training to get there. So that was tough. But we got ourselves together. We had that come into the body moment where I felt silly about even being disappointed for a second in myself for doing something like that. And that was it. I went back and showered, went and got lunch with some friends. I was very busy for the next 2 days. I was really busy, honestly, until I came back home. And when I got back to North Carolina, and literally, I have if you're watching on YouTube, I've got the medal here with me. It's still not hung. Um, every time I go to hang it, I have a hard time with it because Eugene, I chalked up so much in my head to be my fast race, my coming home race, like my full circle moment, all these expectations that I put on myself and I put on this race, only for the marathon to turn out the way it did. And I think that that's just a perfect example of the cheesy thing that everybody says about the marathon not owing you anything. It doesn't care that you're injured. It doesn't care how long you put into training. It doesn't care how much money you spent trying to rehab something. It doesn't care how much effort you put in or how hard you work or anything like that. It does not care. The marathon just is. It just is. And if we put more on it than what it just is, that's when we're going to disappoint ourselves. Like I disappointed myself. So the biggest lesson I'm taking from this race in training through an injury and all of that good stuff is to not put so many expectations on myself or the marathon, because at the end of the day, we have no control over what's going to happen. I had no control over this injury. On paper, I did nothing wrong. I trained extremely well for my second marathon. my running form was off, but I would have had no way of knowing that until I went and saw somebody or got injured like I did. So I did everything the way I was supposed to, and it still turned out the way that it did. So, like, not putting so many expectations on myself or the race is something that I am so, so grateful to have perspective on now after the fact. During and going through the experience, I wouldn't have had that perspective. I truly, truly feel like, and I'm not saying this to say that you have to go through something traumatic to have perspective on it, but for me, I'm really thankful that I went through this because I feel like a different runner now. Like, I almost feel like I did after my first marathon, where instead of gaining confidence, I gained like perspective on myself in running, and I feel like a stronger runner because I'm going to be able to evaluate my performance a lot better. And I can tell you right now that if this happens again, if I'm injured mid marathon block, I'm not running that marathon. 100% no. I needed to do this for myself to see what it was like to push through something like this. Obviously, disclaimer, safely. I did it with a whole lot of people telling me that I could and helping me through it safely, but I would never do this again. The second that I have a gut instinct that something is wrong and that I can't push through it, or that it's going to beat me up to push through it, I'm not going to do it, because I would rather save my legs and save my mental sanity and all of this good stuff for a race that I have a good shot of going my way, rather than push through something and potentially injure myself, hurt my confidence, hurt all these like beautiful things about running that I've built up over the last couple of years over a race that I have no control over. So that's definitely the perspective that I'm gaining from this entire experience. I know that was a lot. It was a lot going through it too. Race day was a lot, but I appreciate everybody who's supported me through this journey. I know that there was a couple of weeks there when things got really hard where the podcast suffered. I didn't get up as many posts, or I didn't get out an episode or something like that because of training. So just thank you so much to this community for supporting me and supporting the show through this whole thing. Coming up next for me, I do have some stuff coming up later in the year. Right now, I'm 100% focused on rehabbing, especially my knees. Obviously, I need to give them a break. So I'm not running for at least 2 weeks after the marathon. And if 2 weeks isn't enough, I'm going to give it even more time. I am running the Chicago Marathon with my mom later in the year. She's doing her first marathon, so I get to have that experience of seeing it through the lens of somebody else again, which I'm so excited for. We are certainly going to be party pacing that marathon, so that won't be my 4:15. But we've got that coming up October 12th. And as long as I'm able to rehab successfully, knees are good, I'm feeling good, in the next couple of months, I'm playing around with the idea of trying for my 4:15 after Chicago, maybe like the couple of weeks after. I'm probably going to work with a run coach this time if I'm going to do that, because I don't want to have to rely on myself to safely train through 2 marathons back to back like that. But that's the loose goal. Chicago's the main goal, but the loose goal is to try and hit that 4:15 PR by the end of the year, so I can really focus on traveling and non-marathon stuff in 2026. So stay tuned for that, and thank you again for listening. Thank you so much for tuning into another episode. If you're enjoying My First Marathon, it would mean the world to me if you could rate and review the show. As a reminder, check out myfirstmarathonpodcast.com for free resources, and if you can't get enough MFM for $5 a month, you can also get access to extended episodes, bonus content, and a Q&A corner featuring some of our most popular guests. Check out the exclusives tab on the website for more information. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you on the next one.